Hi guys, today's topic is prototype pollution. So the topics that we would be covering today, we will be covering from the very basic, what are objects in JavaScript. Then we will move towards the concept of prototype and inheritance. We will be seeing an example of prototype pollution vulnerability in the application, and then we will move towards the detection part and the impact of prototype pollution vulnerability. And finally, we will be seeing a demo in which we will explain how prototype pollution vulnerability can be converted into privilege escalation vulnerability. So starting from very basic, what are objects in JavaScript? In JavaScript, you can say that object is a collection of key value pair where each key would be a string and the value can be any data type, including other objects or functions. So for example, I have declared an object here called user, and this user object is having key value pair. The name is a key, the value of the key name is Mayank. When it comes to access part, how do you access the properties of the user object? So there are two ways. The first one is you can access the property of the object using dot operator, and the second one is you can access the value of the keys which are present inside the object using square brackets. I will demonstrate it to you practically on the browser console. So here we have declared an object called user, and these many properties or these many key value pairs we have declared inside the user object. So for example, now I want to access this name key, the value of name key inside the user object. So I can do this using dot operator, user dot name. You will see that the value of name key would be printed in front of you. In other way, if I want to access this key value using square braces, I can pass this name inside the square braces, and you would be able to see that we are able to access the property of this name key inside the user object. So that is how we access the properties of the object in JavaScript. So now coming to the other concept of prototype and inheritance part. So example, I am declaring a variable or an object in the JavaScript, and we are just saying that the value is a string type and the value is Mayank. Now if I will type m dot, you would see that there are lot of functions which are available for me right now, but I have not declared any function. I have just declared the variable, and the type of the variable is string. So from where these functions are coming? So these functions are coming because of the prototype. Now if I will type m dot underscore underscore proto, you would see that the prototype of this m object is string. Now according to the concept of inheritance, whatever the functions and whatever the properties which are available to string prototype or parent class would be inherited by the child class, that is m. So that is why you would be able to see the functions which are available inside string class that is also available with the variable m, and you can use those readily available function in the JavaScript. So that is the power of prototype in the JavaScript. So this prototype and inheritance we have already covered. Now I wanted to cover a concept of prototype chain also, so I will just show it to you. So we have already seen that the prototype of the object m that we have declared here is string. If I want to see the prototype of string, then I can just call this function once again, and it will say that the prototype of string is object, and this chain will be continuing until we get the null object. For example, I want to access the prototype of object. Now I will just call it again, and you will see that the prototype of object is null. So this chain, because m is a variable that we have declared. The prototype of m is a string, the prototype of a string is object, and the prototype of object is null. So this is constructing a kind of chain, and this chain we are calling as a prototype chain. So now coming back to prototype pollution example, I will just clear the console here. And now for example I am declaring two object. The first one is user1. These are the key value pair that I am having inside the user object. The first one is name. Name could be anything, which is Mayank in my case. And another key value pair which I am defining here is company. The company for which Mayank is working right now is XYZ. So this is one of the object that I have created. In the similar way, I am creating another object, user2, which is Vishal, and the company for which Vishal is working is ABC. So now you can see that there are two objects we have currently created. One is user1 and the other one is user2. If I want to access the prototype of user1, we can access using underscore underscore proto underscore underscore. So the prototype of user1 is object. In the similar way, the prototype of user2 would also be an object. Now, if somehow I get access to the prototype of user1, that is also getting inherited by the user2. So if I am able to pollute the prototype of user1, then automatically the object or the prototype of user2 would be polluted. So how do we do that? Now if I am creating another property inside the prototype of user1, which is object, this can be done using underscore underscore proto. I am creating another property called isAdmin, and I am assigning the value as true. You can see here that now user1 is having isAdmin property, which is true. Since the prototype of user1 is object, this property would automatically be inherited by the user2 object, and this property would automatically be available with the user2. And you can see here that user2 also can access this particular property, which is admin. So that is how prototype pollution vulnerability occurs or works. We pollute the prototype of one object, and that would get inherited by other object in the application, and this could result into many vulnerabilities. Like on the client side, it could result in DOM based accesses. On the server side, it could result in remote code execution or privilege escalation kind of vulnerability, or maybe the impact could be dependent upon the attacker how they want to exploit this vulnerability. They can create an infinite loops, and they can this can create an unexpected behavior in the application that would affect the real users of the application. So we have already covered this example. Coming to the detection part, there can be in the JavaScript, you have to analyze the JavaScript. In the JavaScript, there can be functions like merge, clone, which can be vulnerable to prototype pollution vulnerability, or there is a function called set value also that can also be vulnerable to prototype pollution vulnerability. So manually you can check it, and there are some default outdated libraries or framework JavaScript frameworks which are available in the open source that can be utilized by your application. So you can just check it out, what is the framework or versions of the libraries your application is utilizing, And if those are vulnerable to prototype pollution vulnerability, those exploits would be present in the open source. You can just copy paste the exploit and you can exploit the application, or you can exploit this prototype pollution vulnerability. The tool that is used to find DOM-based accesses using prototype pollution vulnerability is DOM and Invader. This is an extension in the Chromium browser that is readily available in the default browser which is offered by Bubsuite. The impact we have already discussed. On the client side, it could lead to DOM-based accesses, while on the server side, it might lead to remote code execution or privilege escalation kind of vulnerabilities. Coming to the mitigation part of prototype pollution vulnerability. So whenever a user is supplying input through any input field or through the URL or from anywhere, so you should sanitize that input first. You should see if that input contains keywords like underscore underscore proto or constructor or any prototype that affect the prototype chain. So you should block those inputs in the very initial. The another mitigation that we can have for prototype pollution vulnerability is that you can freeze the prototype of the object using freeze function. It is also available in the JavaScript, so you can just utilize this function so that no one would be able to pollute the prototype of the object. Okay, so coming to the demo part, I was just solving a lab of the Botsweaver. So you can just consider it that you have logged in the application and you are updating some of the properties or some of the values in your profile section. So you are updating the address in your profile section, and these are the variables you are setting while you are updating the profile, the address of your profile. So you can see here that once we click on the send button or once we send this request to the server, you will see that this is the username, this is the first name, is admin parameter is set to false. So the first thought that will come into my mind is that I can just send this parameter, forcefully insert this parameter in the request, and we will see if we can escalate the privileges of my current user. So I did that. I forcefully injected this parameter is admin and I set it the value as true, but unfortunately it didn't work. So this is a mass assignment vulnerability. This is another vulnerability in which we forcefully inject the parameters through which we can escalate the privileges of current user. Now I have discovered that we can pollute the prototype of this object. So you can assume that there is a parent object of my current user, and from there only it is inheriting the property, the isAdmin property, and it was setting it to false by default. But here I am able to exploit, or I am able to manipulate the prototype of the current user or current object, and I set it using underscore underscore proto keyword, and I set it the value as true. Now you are seeing that the isAdmin parameter is reflecting it as true because it has polluted the base object or parent object, or we can say the prototype of the object. So now we have escalated our privileges. So that is how you can escalate your privileges using prototype pollution vulnerability. So that is all we wanted to cover today. Thank you for watching.